No, I was listening to Stay Insane Amongst the Insanity this morning, and he's posted up a video, and he's talking about Steve Hoca again, of course. And he's talking about Steve Hoca asking for money. And not asking for money, demanding money. That's right, demanding, okay, money. And talked about his content over the years, so-called interviews, and he said a whole bunch of good stuff, Staying Insane Amongst Insanity, but there's something I want to add to this, and there's something that, unless you've been around long enough, obviously Staying Insane Amongst the Insanity's been here for a long time. But unless you really pay attention or you actually know what transpired back in the day when Steve Hoca came at me in a video reply to one of my videos, and we talked and got to know each other, and he called me on my phone and I called him on his phone, and he did his TFL thing. See, what you don't understand is this. You know, I can remember Steve Hoca made a video saying, "I will not sway." That was the name of the video. I will not sway. Well, when you say, what do you mean by I will not sway? In other words, he will not change his mind. That's right. He's going to stay on point, stay to what his belief is. He's not going to change his mind. Now, the reason he made that video, I will not sway, was because that's what Steve Hoca does and has always done. Always. Okay? And I made a video reply back at him saying Steve Hoca will sway. I'm sure he didn't appreciate it at the time, but it was the truth. You have to understand, when he became part of the TFL, I would do a video and I would post up my video, and Steve Hoca would see my video and he would call me up screaming and yelling at me. That's right. And demanding me to take it down right now. Like somehow he had control over what I do. Like somehow he was the sole controller of my life, TFL, what you think, what you're allowed to think, what you're not allowed to think. That's right. You know, God, Steve Hoca, as you follow his command right now. That's right. You don't think with your brain, you think with his brain. You do as he says. He's your God. He's your dictator. This has always been Steve Hoca as long as I've known him. From day one. From his first videos on TFL dating scene topics. This has always been Steve Hoca. And asking for money, he'd done this back then too. That's right. Steve's always been here for the wrong reasons. This is not an accident. Yes, has he done some good work? Yes, he has. Will he stay to his own belief when he believes something? If he's looked into something and he don't look into nothing anyhow, it's a sad thing. But if he was looking a little bit, because that's all the further he'd go with his looking, is a little bit, and he believes in something, well, he stayed believing in that thing passionately and holding on to his belief? No, he won't. I've watched Steve Hoca over the years slam dunk pickup artist industry, PUA, and slam dunk them hard and criticize them and call them names and say how phony they are, which they are, how it'll never work, and then turn around and side with PUA and promote their material. That's right. And then turn around and attack them again, and then turn around and go back inside of them again. So when he's talking about, when he did his video, I will not sway, that's what he was talking about. His own behaviors. But he's always done this, always. And this is nothing new. Okay, and when he stays focused and he does what you'd want to call an interview, It's just like his videos. He's done some good ones, but then he goes off the deep end and he sways. He changes his mind. And then he changes his mind back again. Then he changes his mind again. Then he changes it back again. And then he changes it again. I used to just say, you know, Steve Hoca runs marathons. And there's a reason he runs marathons. Because he runs from any controversy. And he runs from reality. It's not just marathons. He's a regular runner. Oh yeah, Steve Hoca, he is a regular runner. And he runs a lot. He does a lot of running. When the shit gets too deep, he'll take down his videos and run. He's gone. Steve Hoca has left the house. That's right. That's how that works with Steve Hoca. As soon as he gets a little frustrated, a little blah, 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 he's decided it's time. Wham! Steve's back. That's right. He's back now. Then when things get deep again, he runs again because he is a runner, you know. And so he runs again. But you got to remember this. For those who do not know Steve Hoca, what can I say? He may talk about Mitchell as his best friend. But even Mitchell, if he was to be honest, if he was to be dead honest with you, he would tell you that Steve Hoca is very, very hot-headed. Very, very hot-headed and controlling. Mitchell knows this to be true. Oh, yes, Mitchell does. I know this to be true, and Mitchell knows what I'm saying if he was listening to his videos correct. He knows it is. I know Steve Hoca. This is what you people don't understand. I've dealt with Steve Hoca. He has not changed one little bit. From the time he first came up talking about dating scene topics in TFL, from the very beginning to today's date, this man has not changed a bit. He is still the same Steve Hoca. That has not changed. You have to know Steve Hoca to know that. The majority of the people who have followed Steve Hoca all these years have never gotten to know Steve Hoca or talked to him. What people he done interviews with, I'm sure he talked to 2-3 times, whatever, done the interview, and never talked again. And I'm sure they found out amongst doing the so-called interview themselves how bossy he was, and when he disagrees with an idea, how it fires him up, and how he couldn't have well, he don't know how to agree to disagree. That is not in Steve Hoca's, however you want to say it, vocabulary. That's not in his mindset. He does not believe in that. He don't know how to do that. He hasn't the first clue how to agree to disagree. The only thing he knows how to do is demand. You think with his brain. You think like him, or else. Or else. He's irate. He's mad at you. Matter of fact, he'll stop talking to you. He'll want sub from you. He'll block you. He'll remove you off his contacts list. He won't associate with you ever again, but he'll spend years slamming you. That's right. And the reason he will slam you so hard is because he didn't think with his brain. That's right. Steve Hoca wants you to use his brain that he put in a jar for you to think with. You're not to be an individual human being with your own thoughts and your own feelings. He don't know how to agree to disagree. He don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. He never has and probably never will. What he does know how to do is dictate, scream and yell, get very angry, and chase money. And of course he's talking about, if you give me money, I'll get laid. Because that's all a relationship is to him. So of course that hasn't changed any. Even when he left me the comment saying that he's beyond that. And he wants one good woman, a serious relationship. That it's not about getting laid. Here he is 2 weeks later, after leaving the comment, talking about getting laid again. Of course he is. It wouldn't matter if he says, no, I'm beyond that. I'm too old for that now. No, he's not. That hasn't changed a bit. That's Steve Hoca swaying back and forth. He left a comment to a comment I left at him, telling me he's beyond that now. That he's older now. He just wants one good woman. That's it. It's not about getting laid. And that's the comment he left at me. 2 weeks later, he's on his feed, doing what he's always done. That ain't going to change any, not with Steve Hoca. So, I just wanted to put this out there and let you know, because it's like this. Unless you know Steve Hoca, you got no room to be opening your mouth. Because you followed his videos for a bunch of years and never really talked to him, doesn't mean you know him. I can guarantee you one thing. Mitchell knows Steve Hoca. Take that to the bank. Mitchell knows Steve Hoca like I know Steve Hoca. And Mitchell, if he was to be honest with you, he's going to tell you what I'm telling you. Steve Hoca has not changed. No, he hasn't. He hasn't changed over the years. He's always been this way. Always, from day one. Nothing's changed. That's the only statement Staying Insane Amongst the Insanity made that he's changed over the years that I had to disagree with. Everything else Staying Insane Amongst the Insanity has said about Steve Hoca, he is spot on. Spot on. He sees it. He knows. And the only reason I'm saying that's the only statement that I disagree with is because, well, Staying Insane Amongst the Insanity is a very smart man. I can tell he's honest. He tries to stay right on point, and he's not bullshitting nobody. He just don't know Steve Hoca. He's watched Steve Hoca's content. He sees through the BS, but he don't know him. That's not his fault. And he said it himself. He wouldn't want to be in that interview. He'd be screamed at. He's correct. He would be. You know who I feel sorry for is Mitchell. Because I'll guarantee you Steve Hoca has screamed at Mitchell. Screamed, yelled at him, and demanded of Mitchell more times than you can count. Why Mitchell tolerated it and put up with it, it's not up to me to tell you why. That's up to Mitchell. It's not for me to tell Mitchell who you can be friends with. That is up to Mitchell. I couldn't tolerate that behavior. When he screamed and ordered and yelled at me, I didn't put up with it. Why do you think he don't talk to me? That's why he don't talk to me. Because I don't put up with the BS. That's why I said no. Steve Hoca does not know how to agree to disagree. Steve Hoca doesn't have the concept that there's no two people on the face of this earth, regardless of how good of friends they are, regardless of how close or how in love they are in a relationship, that agree straight across the board every day. It don't exist. That's an illusion. That's la la land. And that's no lie. That's fact. So, you know, until Steve Hoca grows up, which I don't think he ever will. That's just my opinion. I don't think he ever will. Until he can grow up and understand that, he's always going to fail. Always. And he's going to have very few friends. Because most people will not put up with being ordered and demanded of, and screamed and yelled at by somebody just because they disagree with your opinion. And if you're friends with Steve Hoca, you better get ready for that type of life, because that's what you'll have. You'll have a very hot-headed dictator who thinks you have to think with their brain. How dare you think differently than them? Even if they don't look into jack squat. And as far as the slamming people on a regular basis, I'm used to it. He has done this from the time I've met him too. Nothing's changed. Nothing at all. So when he sways back and forth, he gets on the right track and he does some really good work. And then he sways the other direction like a swing set and fouls it all up. Then he sways back, just like with PUA. It's a pickup artist industry. How big of a scam they are, how their shit don't work, how they're stealing money from the public and using TFLers to make money and blah, 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 and slams the hell out of them. All of that stuff is true. Problem, reaction, solution. The problem was not created by accident. The problem came down from government into media, into books and magazines. The problem was passed down. It was a problem given to us. Problem, reaction, solution. PUA was a phony solution that they made money off of. Steve Hoca has swayed back and forth on that for years. He attacks them, and then turns around and sides with them and sides with them. Then he attacks them. Then he sides with them. It's what you call swaying back and forth. So when Steve Hoca made the video saying, I will not sway, and I made a reply at him saying, you will sway. See, so unless you've been around long enough to have seen that, and unless you know Steve Hoca personally and have dealt with him personally, as I have, or as Mitchell has, you really need to keep your opinion out of it. And this is not, that message, when I said that, is not to staying insane amongst the insanity. When I said keep your opinion out of it, I'm not talking to staying insane amongst the insanity. That's not to him. He's a very smart man. He sees through BS. And like I told you, other than that one statement, everything staying insane amongst insanity is said about Steve Hoca is spot on factual truth. He sees it. See, staying insane amongst the insanity is not a dumb man. And he's not a deceiver or a liar. I can tell you that right now. Without even knowing him personally. I'll tell you that about him right now. That's why I have respect for staying insane amongst insanity. And I like the man. Because he's honest. He does his homework. He don't just shoot off his mouth. And he calls it as he sees it. So with all respect to staying insane amongst the insanity, that's how I feel about him. I like him. Smart man. Steve Hoca, what can I say? I don't dislike Steve Hoca, but no, he's not changed. Steve Hoca is still the same Steve Hoca is as he was 15 years ago as he is now. Nothing's changed about him, and nothing probably ever will change about him.